Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving deep, really deep, into a story that, honestly, it just sticks with you. The disappearance of the Sodder children on Christmas Eve, 1945.
It's one of those cases that has everything, tragedy, mystery, decades of searching, just baffling.
Absolutely. Imagine, a festive family night, Christmas Eve, and it turns into this absolute nightmare. A house fire and 5 children just vanished.
Vanished without a trace. That's the key. And you shared some incredible material, looking at the family, the fire, the investigation, or maybe the lack of one sometimes.
Exactly. And the sources paint this picture of the Sodders, George and Jennie, Italian immigrants in Fayetteville, West Virginia, a big family, 10 kids, their whole world just shattered that night.
And what grabs you immediately is that central fact. No bodies. Ever.
Right. No remains found in the ashes.
Which, understandably, led
That they survived somehow. We're going to unpack why they held on to that belief so strongly and, frankly, the very strange things that seem to support it.
It's a compelling and incredibly sad story.
So let's set the scene. George and Jennie Sodder, they built a life in Fayetteville. George ran a trucking business.
And George was known for being pretty outspoken, particularly critical of Mussolini.
Which seemed pretty unusual, maybe even dangerous, in a community with a significant Italian-American population back then.
It definitely caused friction. And this is important because there were warnings, threats, even before the fire.
Like the life insurance salesman. That story is chilling.
It is. He apparently tried to sell George a policy George refused, and the salesman allegedly retorted that George's house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed, all because of his dirty remarks about Mussolini.
Wow. That's incredibly specific and disturbing.
Highly disturbing. And it wasn't isolated. There was another incident, a stranger looking for work, who warned George about the fuse boxes, saying they'd cause a fire.
But hadn't George just had the house rewired?
Exactly. He'd had it checked by the electric company when they installed a new stove. It was supposedly fine. So was this guy genuinely concerned, or was he planting an idea? Or maybe checking the layout?
It feels ominous in retrospect, doesn't it?
It really does. And then there was the strange car the older kids saw.
Oh, right. Parked along the road just watching the younger kids walk home from school.
Yeah. For weeks before Christmas. It adds this layer of unease, like they were being watched.
Okay, so this is the backdrop. These tensions, these weird incidents. And then we get to Christmas Eve, 1945.
It started out, by all accounts, very normally, festive. Marion, the oldest daughter at home, had bought gifts for the younger ones.
Martha, Jennie, Betty, they were excited, wanted to stay up late.
They did. Jennie, their mother, let them stay up a bit past their bedtime. Maurice and Louis, the 2 boys, were told to do the evening chores before heading up to the attic bedroom where they slept with the girls.
And George and the older boys, John and George Jr., were already asleep. They'd been working all day.
Correct. Jennie took the youngest, little Sylvia, up to bed with her. Everything seemed fine.
Until the phone rang. Late.
Around 12:30 a.m., Jennie answers. It's a woman asking for someone she doesn't know. Wrong number.
But Jennie remembered something odd about the call, didn't she?
Yeah, she said she heard laughter, clinking glasses in the background like a party. And the woman had a weird laugh. She hung up, thought it was strange, but went back towards bed.
And on her way, she noticed the lights were still on downstairs.
Right, and the curtains weren't drawn. Usually the kids did that if they stayed up late. She saw Marion asleep on the couch, assumed the others had gone up to the attic, so she closed the curtains, turned off the lights, went to bed.
This small things, but unsettling later.
Very. Then, about half an hour later, maybe 1 a.m., she hears this loud bang on the roof, like something heavy hit it and rolled off.
She heard that. Wow.
Yeah. But nothing followed, so she drifted back to sleep.
Until the smoke.
Around 1:30 a.m., she wakes up smelling smoke, finds George's office, near the front of the house, on fire. It seemed concentrated around the fuse box and the phone line.
She wakes George, the older boys. Chaos.
Absolute chaos. George, Jennie, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr. get out. But the 5 kids upstairs in the attic, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, Irene, Betty, they don't respond.
The stairs.
Already in inferno. Completely blocked. No way up.
Oh, God. So they try to get help.
Desperately. But the phone inside is dead.
The same phone that worked an hour before.
The very same one. Marion runs to a neighbor's to call the fire department, but can't get an operator immediately. Someone else tries from a nearby tavern. Phone doesn't work there either. It takes time, precious time, for someone finally gets through from downtown.
Just a cascade of failures.
And it gets worse. George, frantic, tries to climb the house, cuts his arm badly, breaking a window. They think, the ladder. George always kept a heavy ladder against the side of the house.
But it wasn't there.
Gone. Vanished. They searched nearby, couldn't find it.
Unbelievable. What else could go wrong?
The water barrels they had for fire emergencies. Frozen solid. It was a cold night, but completely frozen.
Okay, this is starting to feel less like bad luck.
And the final straw. George tries to start his 2 coal trucks to pull them up to the window, climb on top. Neither truck will start.
Neither one, even though they worked perfectly the day before.
Perfect working order, they just wouldn't turn over. It's like everything that could have helped them was disabled.
So they're forced to just stand there, helpless, and watch the house burn down?
Collapsed into the basement in about 45 minutes. Utterly devastating. Believing the 5 children were inside.
And the fire department?
Arrived much later, like 8 a.m. the next morning. The volunteer department was understaffed. The chief apparently couldn't drive the truck. They were just too late. The house was embers.
And the chief, Morris, what did he say initially?
He told the Sodders they hadn't found any bones. Nothing. Which is strange in itself.
Yeah, even in intense fires, usually find skeletal remains.
Yeah. You'd expect to. Morris's explanation was that the fire was so hot it completely cremated the bodies. Total incineration.
But this is where the family's doubts really started to solidify.
Absolutely. The official ruling came fast. Death certificates issued. The coroner's inquest just days later ruled it an accidental fire due to faulty wiring.
But wait, wasn't there something suspicious about that inquest jury?
There was. The private investigator the Sodders later hired, C.C. Tinsley, discovered that the very same life insurance salesman who had threatened George.
No way.
Yes, he was on the coroner's jury.
That cannot be a coincidence. That screams cover-up, or at least a massive conflict of interest.
It certainly raises serious questions about the impartiality of that ruling. And the Sodders themselves, once the initial shock wore off, started noticing things that didn't fit the accidental fire story.
Like the Christmas lights.
Exactly.
Oh.
If it was an electrical fire that started near the fuse box, why did the Christmas lights stay on for a while? Shouldn't the power have cut out immediately?
Good point. And the ladder.
Found later. Way down an embankment, about 75 feet away. Not just fallen over, but moved quite a distance. How? Why?
And the phone line wasn't burned through?
Nope. Later inspection showed it had been cut. Cleanly cut, high up the pole. Someone had to climb up there and do that deliberately.
Did they ever find out who?
Well, a local man known for petty theft admitted stealing a block and tackle from the property around that time. He claimed he cut the line thinking it was a power line, but denied any part in the fire. But apparently, there's no official record of him ever being treated as a suspect. It's murky.
Okay, so cut, phone line, missing ladder, trucks that won't start. And then there's the core issue for Jennie. The complete lack of remains.
She couldn't accept it. They found recognizable appliances in the ashes, bits of the tin roof, why not bones? She read about other fires where remains were always found.
Didn't she do her own experiments?
Grim experiments, yes. Burning animal bones, chicken bones, beef joints. They never fully disintegrated. She even spoke to a crematorium worker who confirmed human bones survive intense heat for hours, much longer and hotter than their house fire likely was.
So the total incineration theory seemed impossible to her.
Deeply improbable, based on her research and common sense. And George remained convinced the trucks were tampered with. Maybe flooded, maybe wires cut. He never knew for sure. But he never believed it was just bad luck.
Even the wrong number phone call started to seem suspicious again in that context.
Although investigators apparently did track down the woman who made the call later, and she confirmed it was just a genuine mistake. But for the family, in that atmosphere of doubt, everything seemed potentially connected.
So they buried the site, planted a memorial garden, but the hope didn't die.
No, it was reignited by other things, like the bus driver who came forward.
What did he see?
He was driving through Fayetteville late on Christmas Eve and saw people throwing balls of fire at the Sodder house.
Balls of fire, like Molotov cocktails or something?
Possibly. And then Sylvia, one of the surviving kids, found something months later. A small, hard, dark green rubber object near the house.
And George thought.
He thought it looked like a pineapple bomb, maybe an incendiary device. It connected with Jennie hearing that bang on the roof before the fire. It suggested the fire might have started on the roof, not from faulty wiring inside.
Which completely contradicts the official finding.
Completely. And then came the sightings.
People claiming they saw the missing children after the fire.
Yes. A woman watching the fire claimed she saw some of the kids in a car driving past during the blaze. Another woman working at a tourist court, a sort of motel between Fayetteville and Charleston.
What did she report?
She said she served breakfast to children matching their descriptions the morning after the fire. She remembered them being with 2 men and 2 women and mentioned seeing a car with Florida license plates in the parking lot.
Florida plates? That's specific. Were these sightings ever verified?
They're incredibly hard to confirm so long after the fact. But you can imagine what they did for the Sodders' hope. It kept that flicker alive.
So they hired the private investigator, Tinsley. He finds out about the insurance guy on the jury. What else?
He digs into this really bizarre rumor about the fire chief, Morris. The rumor was that Morris had found something in the ashes, despite saying otherwise.
Found what?
A heart. Supposedly he found a heart, put it in a metal box, and secretly buried it.
A heart? Why would he do that? And why just a heart?
It makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
But Morris apparently confided this to a local minister who told George. George and Tinsley confronted Morris.
And Morris admitted it.
He eventually agreed to show them where he buried the box. They dug it up.
Was it a heart?
It was. Beef liver. Fresh beef liver. Never been near a fire.
Beef liver? Are you serious? What on earth?
Exactly. The story that went around afterwards was that Morris planted it there, hoping the Sodders would find it, assume it was proof the children died, and finally drop their investigation.
That is one of the strangest, most disturbing twists I've ever heard in a true crime case. It sounds like something out of a movie.
It's incredibly bizarre, and it just deepened the mistrust and suspicion surrounding the whole official handling of the case.
The family kept searching, obviously. Didn't George see a picture that gave him hope?
He did. A photo in a magazine of ballet dancers in New York City. One girl looks strikingly like his daughter Betty.
So he went to New York.
Drove all the way there. But the school refused to let him see the girl. Repeatedly denied his requests.
Why would they do that? That seems odd, too.
It does. Frustrated, George tried to get the FBI involved, believing it was a kidnapping.
And the FBI?
J. Edgar Hoover himself replied, basically saying it was a local matter unless local authorities requested federal help, which they didn't.
So another dead end? But they didn't give up? They pushed for another excavation?
Yes, in 1949, George got a pathologist from D.C. to oversee a proper dig at the site.
Did they find anything this time?
A few small items, coins, a dictionary, and some small bone fragments. Human vertebrae.
Okay, finally. That must be it, right?
Well, that's what you'd think. They sent the bones to the Smithsonian for analysis.
And the results?
The expert determined they were lumbar vertebrae, likely from one individual aged about 16 or 17, maybe up to 22.
But the oldest missing Sodder child, Maurice, was only 14.
Exactly. So they likely weren't from any of the 5 missing children. And crucially,
Let me guess, no fire damage.
0 sign of fire damage. The Smithsonian report called it very strange that these were the only bones found when a fire like that should have left full skeletons. They even speculated the bones might have come in with the filger George used to cover the site, or maybe even from a nearby cemetery disturbed somehow.
So even the bones added more questions than answers. This case is just layer upon layer of mystery.
It really is. The state legislature held hearings in 1950 because of the public attention, but ultimately the governor and state police declared the case hopeless and closed it.
The FBI dropped it too.
After a couple of years with no leads, yes. Officially, the case was cold.
But not for the Sodders.
Not for a second. They printed flyers, offered a reward started at $5,000, went up to $10,000, and then in 1952 they put up the billboard.
Ah, the famous billboard. Right there at the side of the house, and another one on Route 16. Pictures of the 5 children, the reward offer.
It became iconic, a constant reminder, visible to everyone driving past, that 5 children were missing and their family was still searching, still hoping. It stood there for decades.
Such a powerful symbol of their refusal to give up. Did any more leads come from it?
Sporadic sightings continued to be reported. The hotel owner in Charleston, who thought she saw them a week later with Italian-looking adults, though that's now considered less reliable because she only saw photos years later.
And George kept traveling, following leads.
Oh, yes. St. Louis, Texas.
Yeah?
He heard a rumor Martha was in a convent, went to check it out. Nothing ever panned out. It must have been heartbreaking, getting hopes up only to have them dashed again and again.
Until 1967, the letter.
That was perhaps the most tantalizing clue they ever received. A letter addressed to Jennie, postmarked in Central City, Kentucky. No return address.
And inside?
A photograph. A photo of a young man maybe late 20s, early 30s,
Who looked like.
who bore a very, very strong resemblance to their son Louis, as he might have looked grown up.
Wow. After more than 20 years, what else was with it?
On the back of the photo, a cryptic handwritten note. It read, Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Illil boys, A90132 or 35.
What does that even mean, Illil boys? The numbers.
Nobody knows for sure. Was Frankie one of the older brothers, John or George Jr.? Were the number a zip code, maybe military ID? Just more questions. But the resemblance in the photo was undeniable.
This must have been huge for them.
Immense. They hired another private detective specifically to investigate this lead, the photo, the Kentucky postmark.
And did this detective find anything?
He took their money and disappeared. Never reported back, never heard from again.
You're kidding. Another dead end and a potential scam on top of it?
This is awful. But the Sodders added the photo to the billboard anyway. Jennie kept a blow-up of it over the fireplace. They believed it was Louis.
Did George live to see any resolution?
Sadly, no. He passed away in 1969. He said near the end that it felt like hitting a stone wall, but he never stopped searching. All they wanted was to know what happened.
And Jennie?
She continued. She stayed in the house they rebuilt, tended the memorial garden where the old house stood, until she died in 1989. The surviving children, except for John, who found it too painful, carried on the search.
Exploring theories like mafia involvement, maybe, because of George's anti-Mussolini stance?
But that theory persisted. Extortion, maybe taking the children back to Italy. It's all speculation, of course.
And the youngest survivor, Sylvia, she was committed to keeping the story alive too, wasn't she?
She was. She was only 2 or 3 that night, but said it was her earliest memory. She promised her parents she wouldn't let people forget. She passed away just recently in 2021. The family still uses online forums, tries to get media attention, hoping someone, somewhere, knows something.
It's incredible. Nearly 80 years later, and the mystery endures. What do most researchers think now? Is there any consensus?
Many who look at it objectively lean towards the probability that the children did die in the fire, perhaps due to an unusually hot coal fire consuming the remains more than expected, coupled with a bungled initial investigation.
But there were just too many weird things, too many unanswered questions. The ladder, the phone line, the trucks, the beef liver.
Exactly. The sheer volume of anomalies keeps the doubt alive.
Yeah.
It prevents the easy conclusion. It's a case that just burrows into your mind.
It really does. The unanswered questions, the family's decades of searching, it's profoundly affecting. Now, if you're finding this deep dive into the mystery of the Sodder children as gripping as we are, take a moment right now to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, definitely do.
Don't miss out on more incredible and thought-provoking tales and in-depth explorations into the unknown right here on Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast. We have so many more fascinating stories lined up for you.
Okay, so back to the Sodders. It really is one of America's great unsolved mysteries, isn't it?
Without a doubt, a tragedy mixed with so much suspicion, so much enduring hope against all odds.
The details just don't sit right. The fire itself, the investigation or lack thereof, the sightings, the photo, it paints such an unsettling picture.
So the big question remains, hanging heavy after all these years. What really happened that night?
Was it just a terrible accident made stranger by incompetence and weird coincidences? Or was something darker going on? Kidnapping? Revenge against George?
We just don't know. And that image of the billboard standing there year after year.
A testament to that unanswered loss. It really makes you think about the impact of not knowing, how it shapes lives, families for generations.
It does. And maybe in a world where we expect quick answers, data for everything.
Right.
Maybe stories like this remind us that some things resist explanation, that uncertainty is part of the human condition, and that hope can endure against incredible odds.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other long-buried mysteries are out there, just waiting for the right clue, the right person to bring the truth to light after all this time?
A truly fascinating and sobering thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Sodder children disappearance here on Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast.
Definitely explore this case more if it's captured your interest. There's so much detail out there.
Indeed. Share your thoughts, your theories. Until next time, take care.